What's up, everybody? Craig Peters here. I hope you guys are all doing well and staying sane with all the craziness that's been going on. And one of the things I've been wanting to do for a while is a studio tour to show you guys kind of how the studio and setup's evolved over the years. It's definitely changed a lot since I first started, especially since I started this channel. I mean, you know, from just my computer setup to some of the different MIDI instruments and guitars that I have, you know, it's changed a lot. So I figured I would give you guys a walkthrough of what I've been using, maybe inspire you for any of you guys who are, you know, looking to add some cool things to your studio and your setup. So one of the things I thought would be cool to start with, being that the whole reason all of this started is because I'm a guitar player. So let's start with the guitars. All right, so getting into it, this is the first LTD I've ever owned. The very first guitar I ever owned was a Kima, and it was like a 21, 22 fret guitar, super cheap. Got it from a friend for like 80 bucks with an amp. And that was, you know, the guitar that allowed me to start practicing and learning Metallica. That was like my first goal. I was like, if I can learn the entire, you know, Master of Puppets song all the way through, and then eventually, you know, try to learn the whole album, and, you know, kind of spiraled down trying to learn a bunch of Metallica, because that was the first band that really kind of like got me excited about music. And but since I don't have that guitar today, let's just go ahead and start talking about some of the guitars that I think I really started doing stuff with. So this is an Ltd F100. I mean, really inexpensive guitar. It's like slathered with dust at the moment. I don't really use it as much as I used to. But I mean, I put so many hours into this guitar. You can see it's got a lot of rust going on. It's just, you know, it's seen better days. But I mean, I like to keep these kind of guitars around as, you know, little bits of reminders of when I used to practice or when I used to play. I used this guitar a lot in a lot of earlier band stuff that I did. A lot of my early stuff with Archaic. I think I recorded our first demo before we got signed with this guitar. It's just a really cool guitar. I always liked the shapes because the shape is very kind of basic. Back when I was a kid, I used to always go to Guitar Center to jam on the John Petrucci Music Man. It was like the first John Petrucci that they ever had. And I remember when I picked this guitar up and I was playing the fretboard, it kind of reminded me of like a Music Man style, so that's why I loved it so much, because it made me feel like, oh, I can play something that's similar to the John Petrucci guitar, even though it's not, and no way near that quality. But it's always good to find a guitar that inspires you to want to play better or like enjoy playing. So that was this guitar for me. So next, let's go to the step up of that guitar. So this is the F100 FM, still LTD. And this is the guitar, like, pretty much every album I've ever recorded was with this guitar. I did the first 2 Archaic records with this guitar. I even recorded some solos for Portals to Canaan from Deeds on this one. I think I even did some solos on the new album with this too. And also all the Destroying the Devoid stuff was this guitar. This is my my Heisenberg guitar. And also covered with a lot of dust. I mean, this guitar, I've taken it on every tour I've ever done. It's just, you know, I still like playing this guitar. I mean, it plays really good. I mean, the pickups, I have I think it's a DiMarzio Evolution. This is just the stock neck pickup, but I mean, it sounded fine for leads, so I was cool with it. This one I think needs a little bit of electronic work, but I mean, this is just an awesome guitar, and I actually got it at Gearhounds over in Lake Elsinore for like really cheap. So I think I actually got it for under $300. And it's definitely seen a lot of playtime, and also, you know, the amount of stuff I've done with this guitar, being that it was under $300, you know, I definitely feel like I got my money's worth on it. So really cool guitar. LTDs are just awesome. So if any of you guys are looking for some inexpensive, good playing guitars, LTD is where it's at. So next we're gonna step it up to a 7-string. So this is a Halo guitar. I think this was like the first sort of any kind of like custom type guitar that I ever got. I was really wanting a 7-string. You know, I was looking at the Halo guitars, I thought they were cool, and this one's got I can't remember what kind of trim on it. It's a Kaler. It's a Kaler bridge, so you can get the kind of goes out of tune a lot because there's no locking up top. Also coated in dust. It's a pretty heavy guitar, kind of like the shape of it's a little uncomfortable. I mean, I actually used this on the new Deeds record. This is the one that I used for the upcoming Deeds record that is coming out. We're working on it. Be patient, it's coming. But yeah, I recorded all the rhythms with this guitar. I mean, it has a really good tone to it, and I'm also using the John Petrucci pickups, the liquefier and the Crunch Lab, I believe is what's in here. Solid ebony neck. It's just a really, you know, it is a cool guitar. It's not the most enjoyable to play, kind of heavy. Like I remember I actually took this on tour once and ended up not using it because it was just a little too heavy, a little bit too uncomfortable on the back. Yeah, it's a pretty cool guitar. I think it's a Halo Reaper. But yeah, cool guitar. It's cool to have around whenever you want to bust out some 7-string stuff in a different tuning. I usually keep this in Ace standard. So yeah, that's the Halo guitar. So this is a really cool bass. This is a Sound Gear by Ibanez. It's a 5-string bass. I always wanted a bass with a maple neck. I just feel like, I don't know. I think after having so many guitars with like rosewood or ebony, I was like, I just kind of want something with like a maple neck, you know, just also I've heard that maple necks can kind of add a little bit more brightness to the tone. So this is a bass guitar that I got, and I used this on the Destroying the Devoid record when I recorded bass for that. And it has a really nice kind of, poppy, clear sound, and it sounds really good for a lot of different types of styles. Yeah, really cool bass, pretty affordable. The Sound Gear stuff, anytime I've ever played bass guitars at Guitar Center or something, I always kind of gravitated toward these. Plus, my first actual good guitar was an Ibanez, so I've always had a liking for Ibanez guitars. But yeah, this is a really cool bass. Used it on the DTD record, and I'm sure I'll use it again in the future. Keeping it in the bass family, the next bass guitar I'm going to show you guys that I have is this Kiesel Vader. This is a really cool bass. I mean, it just sounds great. I'm a huge fan of Kiesel guitars. I mean, when I was a kid, I grew up looking at all like the old Carvin magazines and always wanting a Carvin, you know, back when it was Carvin and now it's Kiesel, back to the original name. And I've just always liked the guitars, always liked the look. I mean, I'm a huge Tony McAlpine fan, and I used to watch videos of him playing on a 7-string Carvin. I was always like, man, I want one of those. So I'm just, you know, I'm a fan of the Kiesel stuff. I really like the guitars. I mean, my Kiesel that I'll show you guys in a minute, it's my favorite guitar that I've ever owned. It just plays great, sounds great, looks amazing. You know, even if I never played guitar anymore and just put it on the wall, it's, you know, it has that kind of like a piece of art quality to it. So, but yeah, this bass is just solid as a rock. And you know, one of the things I've always liked about Kiesel is when you play them, even not even plugged in, it just has this, it just has such a great tone to it. And I feel like if a guitar can sound awesome before you even plug it in, probably good. So yeah, this bass, it's pretty badass, pretty beastly. I like it. So next we're gonna take it into Acoustic Land. This is a Carlo Robelli guitar. So I got this guitar too before I did the DTD record, the first Paramnesia album, because I just really wanted that nylon string. I love that kind of. Just has a really nice sound to it. I mean, if you've seen a little bit of a trend in some of the guitars that I have, I mean, yeah, this isn't like the nicest nylon string ever made, but I mean, it sounds good. It sounds good for what it is, and I feel like a lot of the, you know, making a guitar sound good, it comes from the playing, so it's like up to me to like kind of practice and work on my chops to make something that would normally, you know, be fairly inexpensive and try to make it sound more expensive than it is. But yeah, this is a really cool guitar, pretty inexpensive. It's actually, you could actually plug it into, which is nice. Anytime I've ever recorded with it, I usually tend to mic it because I feel like it sounds better. I'm not really a fan of the way this sounds plugged in, but I mean, miking it sounds great. You really get a lot more of that warmth and low end from the guitar. So yeah, this is my nylon string guitar. And this is another guitar that's relatively inexpensive. I mean, but I think it sounds really good. Once you throw some new strings on an acoustic, you know, you'd be surprised how new strings can make something that's, you know, like one of those old, you know, dad acoustic guitars sitting around. You throw some new strings on it and you can get some pretty nice sounds out of it. I had a project that I needed a steel string guitar on. It was a score for The Long Dark with Chris Velasco. I did some session work on that, and I needed a steel string guitar because I really wanted to have that kind of strummy, folky kind of sound. And I mean, while you can use a nylon string, steel strings just, you know, you kind of need it for that sort of, that more bright kind of strummy tone. So I don't even know exactly what kind of guitar this is. It's also covered in a lot of dust. Greg Bennett design. Never really heard of those, but I mean, you know, it works for what it does. Nathan, again, thank you for coming through and helping me out with this. Yeah, cool steel string that I use every now and again when I need to bust out some steel string guitar. This is another little stringed instrument that I got a few months ago. My friend Dirk and Ram, who also work, they're the owners of DocuScores. They're a production music library that I write for. They both had this, and it's just, I was like, hey, you know, let me check that out. Let me jam on it a little bit. And it's just such a cool, it's a little out of tune, but it's just such a cool little instrument. It has that really cool, like, you know, this is a Seagull Merlin, for any of you guys that are wondering. It just has this really cool dulcimer type sound to it, especially if you're just kind of, like, I really like Viking and Nordic type stuff, so this is a really cool instrument for that. It just has just a really interesting sound, and it's really fun to play. Super easy. It's just, you know, it's 4 strings, but this, you know, these bottom 2 are the same, so it gives it that kind of doubled. But yeah, really cool. I'm not exactly sure what I have this tuned to, but normally it's DAD, just dad tuning. But yeah, Seagull Merlin, awesome little thing to have around when you just want to kind of, you know, play something different and maybe add a little bit of that folky sort of Nordic sound to any musical pieces that I'm working on. Now this is my baby. This is my main guitar right here. This is my Kiesel Aries 7-string. It's got the Buckeye burl on it, bird's eye maple, 7-string fan fret. The pickups are the Guitarmery, the Polaris, I believe. I think they're coming out with some new ones, so I got to check those out too. But yeah, I've been using this guitar for the last couple years. I got this courtesy of my amazing girlfriend. She got me this guitar as a birthday present. It's seriously, it's like the coolest guitar and coolest gift I've ever had, so I got to thank her for that. I've just, you know, I use it on anything that I can, really, from, you know, scoring session gigs to just my own music. I really wanted to have a 7-string for the next DTD record because I wanted to add some of that low 7-string heaviness. And it's just an amazing guitar. I mean, I love it. Sounds great, plays great, and yeah, really cool guitar. This is my main one, and yeah, pretty badass. So now that we've kind of touched on the guitars, you know, which is kind of my origins with music, and even, you know, building a home studio. The whole reason I honestly built a home studio, I mean, it was something that I wanted to do for a long time. I used to have a little shitty rig that I used to use way back during the Metamorph Ignition time, you know, when we were doing the archaic stuff. It was just some crappy Dell with like Acoustic Beecraft. I think I used Adobe Audition for all my sequencing. I had like a Line 6 guitar port, really cheap, like bare minimum setup. But I mean, the whole thing about that was it kind of got me into sort of, you know, programming drums, putting together pre-production. You know, anytime I programmed drums, I had to export a WAV file. So if, let's say, I messed something up, I had to go back, export it. It took like 30 minutes to export a 4-minute track. Really ass backwards setup, but I mean, it was a means to an end. You know, like now, of course, I've kind of over the years been trying to refine my setup in a way that I can just kind of work quickly and be creative. At the same time, if you don't have the means to have the most ideal setup, I mean, you know, resources versus resourcefulness, you know what I mean? Like, if there's a will, there's a way, you know, and I was always just trying to like make do with what I had, you know, and I think you have to do that. You definitely have to be resourceful, especially if you don't have the means. You know, there's a way to get it done. So, you know, the home studios come a long way. You know, the whole reason kind of why I built it was to actually start recording guitar DIs for the Deeds record that is being worked on at the moment. Since starting that, pretty much after that, it was really just a matter of you know, falling in love with the process. You know, I didn't really have the intention of, oh, I want to start like learning how to mix, or, you know, or doing all that kind of engineering type stuff. I always wanted to get more into like virtual instruments and adding symphonic stuff to my music. But other than that, it's just it's one of those things, I think if you enjoy part of the process, you slowly start to kind of fall in love with all of it, you know, from music production, programming, sequencing, recording, editing, mixing, mastering, all that kind of stuff. And it's just really fun. You know, it's all about finding something that you can kind of immerse yourself in. You know, I never really thought that eventually I would end up working for a company that does music related software. For some of you that don't know, I work for SoundIron. We make virtual instruments of all different types. I actually bought some of their choirs a while back that I used on Paramnesia, and that's how I heard of the company, and it's just, you know, kind of all over from there. So it's kind of crazy how it works. You know, you start doing something because you like it in hopes that maybe one day you'll have a job that you enjoy, working in a field that you like. And yeah, so I mean, if any of you out there are ever wanting to do something in a field that you enjoy, you never know, just keep at it. You know, I always kind of hoped, but you know, you never know. So I mean, but if you're doing something that you really enjoy, I think just keep doing it, because you never know what kind of cool opportunities might come up from it. So getting into some of the software and some of this area that you see, just kind of, you know, with a bunch of random stuff laid out. I mean, it's not random, it's all intentional. I've been fine-tuning it and tweaking it over the years. Starting off with studio monitors, I've been using the Kali Audio IN8s since I got them. I've had pretty much every iteration of Kali Audio speakers since they've started, or since I've heard of them, since the LP6s. Great company, fantastic people, and just really good quality stuff for the price. I mean, since I've done the review for the LP6s, I've had tons of people tell me that, you know, oh, thank you for the recommendation, and you know, for the price, just, you can't beat it. And with the IN8s, it's just, you know, it's definitely a step up from anything that I had before, and yeah, really awesome speakers. Moving over, Skull, a couple various Breaking Bad toys. You can tell I like to keep things that I like around my studio, from various little creepy things or statues and stuff. I think it's cool to kind of immerse yourself, and you know, if you can, vibing out your space is very important, I think, to kind of have it to where when you sit down, okay, I'm going to get creative. You know, having things around you that you enjoy, I definitely think is important. And I've always had an affinity toward the more darker things. Not that I'm depressed and emo, but I've always, you know, growing up as a kid, I always loved horror movies and the more kind of like creepy abstract art and that sort of stuff. So you can tell that's kind of what I like to surround myself with. The acoustic treatment that I have on the wall, I saw these from Keith Mara. I think it's Next Acoustics. I could be wrong, but I always really liked the design. I feel like it works really well as far as the, you know, handling any reflections that I have right here. I used to do a lot of voice recording. I still do, you know, for all my videos and stuff that I make. So I actually have some of these on the wall in front of me. I also have some above me on my ceiling, so it really helps kind of hit any sort of first reflections. And then going to some of the things I have on my desk, I have a Machine Micro. This is what I use for programming a lot of more like percussive type things. They recently did an update, so I can use this as a full-on MIDI controller, which is pretty awesome. So if you're doing any sort of like drum programming or, you know, things like that, it's a lot easier to do it on a pad-based type thing versus a keyboard. And getting into keyboards, this is my Complete Control S61. It's a 61 key from Native Instruments. Really awesome MIDI controller. It's semi-weighted, so playing anything from just, you know, fast type stuff. Let's see, I think I got do I got any piano on here? Let's see if it... So, but yeah, it's just a great keyboard, great response. It works really good. I really enjoy programming any sort of virtual instruments on it because it responds really well. This iPad right here, you'll see that it's got a bunch of weird colors and buttons and that sort of thing. And this is all connected to Cubase. I'm using Metagrid for all of my sequencing and program changes and stuff. So if I want to like, okay, let's, you know, go to the beginning and I want to insert a marker, I could do that. Or if I want to create a marker track, I could do that. You know, if I want to do any sort of like MIDI changing and that sort of thing. And this was all inspired by Jason Graves. I suggest for any of you that want to get into using Metagrid with Cubase, check out some of his videos. If I can remember, I'll try to post some in the description. But really good stuff. It takes a little while to set up, but once you have it set up, it works pretty awesome. And then yeah, and then this big, huge fucking thing that you see, this is an Acer 49-inch super ultra wide. I got this when I made the change to PC. For any of you that want to know sort of how I went about doing any of the building for my PC, I actually did a video on the Sound Iron channel if you want to check that out and see some of the parts that I got. But yeah, because I used to have a 27-inch iMac and then just a 27-inch monitor, which is actually this one right here. And pretty much I wanted to have the equivalent of two 27-inch monitors without having that bezel in the middle. And Greg, who is Greg Stevens, who works for Sound Iron 2, kind of put it in my head to get a super ultra wide. Once he told me about it and I did some research, I couldn't say no. It was like one of those, like, I think I have to get that. And not only does it look cool, I mean, it's curved. It really helps for an immersive sort of work experience, especially if you have stuff where you're doing video editing or any type of, you know, DAW work. You can see, like, I don't really have to keep like zooming and scrolling back and forth. I can just have it all sort of laid out, which is really helpful. This is a 32-inch 4K monitor. I'm using this pretty much for, you know, any secondary monitoring that I need. If I'm doing stuff in Cubase, I usually use it for the piano roll, and I use this monitor over here for my mixer. It just helps with just not having to open and close so many things. It just makes it a lot easier to have it all laid out. It's, you know, I'm trying to not really expand on it anymore because it's very easy for it to just kind of turn into spaceship land, which is, you know, it's not a bad thing, but, you know, you have to, if you're trying to kind of maintain a nice ergonomical setup, you know, it's easy to kind of get ridiculous with it. I'm not going to put another 49-inch monitor up here or something like that. Some of the stuff that I have on my desk, I also have a Countryman Type 85 DI box. I'm using a Touche SE, and this is just a really cool controller if you're wanting to really kind of have a more hands-on approach to controlling MIDI. The Touche SE is pretty awesome. I also have a Rolly Seaboard. I think this is the Rolly C block, I believe. You know, it's just like the smaller condensed version, but it's really cool if, you know, because I like MIDI controllers where you can kind of like put a little bit more of yourself into the playing, because a lot of times it's usually keyboard, mod wheel, but when, you know, having that more tactile sort of like the harder you press, kind of like guitar. Oh yeah, and before I forget, this is a Artiphon. This is a MIDI controller that is, it's very similar to a guitar, but of course you can play it in various different ways. I usually like to use it more for like programming more chordal type stuff. It's just, you know, I see things a lot easier. I can create melodies a lot easier on something like this. I'm not a keyboard player. I mean, I can kind of get around, but guitar is my thing. And, you know, with this, it kind of allows me to sort of, you know, approach it like a guitar and playing it more like a guitar. And it's just a really cool, it's probably the best MIDI controller in this type of style that I've ever used. I've tried a few other ones and I haven't really been able to get the most out of them. But yeah, Artiphon, really cool, awesome company and really cool people as well. And yeah, this is just a really cool instrument. So for any of you guitar players out there who just can't cut it on a keyboard like me, get something like this. This is really cool. And yeah, it's just a really awesome tool. And yeah, Artiphon. Pretty sweet. The audio interface, when I first started this channel, I was using the Focusrite 2i2. I still have it and it still works. The Focusrite stuff is fantastic. The only thing is, when it comes to PC and screen recording, it doesn't seem to work very well with voice meter. So I'm using the Complete Audio 6 interface. Works just as good. I mean, sometimes I would have issues with, you know, it not finding it automatically on my PC, but it seems to be working fine now, so that's fine. Let's see, what else do we got? As far as the iPad, it's just a 7th generation iPad. And for the rest of the peripheral stuff that I'm using, I have a Corsair keyboard and mouse. I'm not exactly sure which models they are, But I'll have all the affiliate links for everything down in the description. So for any of you guys who want to check this out or look into some of the gear that I have, you'll be able to do that. And then I have this Rode podcaster right here. I use this for all of my, whenever I'm doing, any type of conference calls, or, sometimes I'll do various Zoom meetings, or, you can even use these for podcasts. Works really good. It's kind of nice because you could just push it out of the way and not have to worry about it. So that's always cool. So, I mean, even though it's kind of an elaborate setup, I really tried to set it up to be useful. Everything has a purpose. Everything has its own place. I mean, I even Velcroed some of this stuff on my desk. So you can see it just doesn't move, because it's very easy for shit to get bumped out of place. So, yeah, there's that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the most part. And then for my DAW, of course, for any of you who are wondering, I'm using Cubase. This is Cubase 10.5.12. I forget. It's the newest version of Cubase. Since I've been using Cubase since 8.5, it's just, I haven't looked back. I really feel like, because I started on Logic Pro 9, and I never actually used Logic Pro X. Like, before Logic Pro 10 came out, I was really looking at some other DAWs. I was looking at Studio One. I was looking at Cubase, because Zach Oren, who I've done a lot of the past few albums with, I've seen him work on it. And he's just, insane with how fast he works on there. Also, some other people, like I've seen Joey Sturgis and like other engineers who have used Cubase, and the things that you can do with the mixing capabilities, with like the way you can group tracks and the way you can MIDI sequence, and just, yeah, it's just an amazing piece of software. I feel like I can fully just be creative on it. And, of course, that comes with time of learning it and learning how it works and all that sort of thing. So anytime I ever get people who ask, like, oh, what kind of DAW should I get? Like, yeah, Reaper is really, inexpensive. I say inexpensive because even though you can get it for free, it's not free. They do require that you buy a license. But that said, I feel like this is worth it. Like, since I've had it, like I said, I never looked back. But it's all about finding a DAW that works for you. So Cubase has definitely been that for me. I've tried a few other ones. I have some other ones on here, but I feel like at this point I'm so integrated with Cubase that leaving is just more of an inconvenience than anything, because I really can do anything that I want with it for the most part. So yeah, that's about it. So I hope you guys all enjoyed watching this video. This is a video I've been planning to do for a while, but as all studios, they are an evolution. They're always changing, always adding little things, always, adding little instruments, and it's always an evolution. So, I mean, that's the thing about studios. It's not, I don't think any of us will ever really have like this is it, unless you just literally have everything baked in and it's never going to change. It's all built into the walls or something. But I mean, studios, it's like music. It's always evolving. It's always changing. It's always getting better. So I feel like, with all the stuff going on right now and everyone being kind of cooped up at home, I thought maybe this would be a cool time to do a studio walkthrough and studio tour and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, give you guys a little bit of an idea of where I work, where I do all my music creation and all my other stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and everyone stay safe, have fun, stay sane. So until next time,